how to make perfect sugar butter cookies for royal icing. Hey, this is almost magical when soft tender sugar butter cookies, perfectly even in shape, each one transforming into a tiny edible canvas. And when you finish them with silky, glossy royal icing, they become stunning jewel-like pieces of art, crisp outline, dreaming pastel colors, delicate details that look like they were painted with patience and love. But the secret to the most beautiful cookie designs, it all starts with the cookie base. Today I will show you how to make my easy, perfectly shaped, absolutely delicious sugar butter cookies, ideal for decorating, gifting, and selling. Here's everything you need to make about 48 medium-sized cookies for today's recipes. Also, we are using a stand mixer fitted with the K-pedal hook to mix the cookie dough quickly and evenly. Alright, let's start building the foundation of the perfect sugar butter cookies. First, add 227 grams of cold cube butter straight into the mixing bowl. Make sure it's high quality butter, more fat, less water, and a richer flavor that gives your cookies that beautiful buttery taste. Next, add 200 grams of brown sugar. This gives softness, moisture, and a gentle caramel note. Then add 95 grams of granulated custard sugar. This helps the cookies keep sharp edges and smooth flat tops. Now place your bowl into the mixer and beat on medium speed for only 15 to 20 seconds. Do not overcream. Overcreaming creates air pockets, which makes cookies spread. The pro tips here is we're not trying to whip this mixture. We only want the butter to soften slightly, not fluffy, not airy, just barely combined. This is the secret to get cookies that bake perfectly flat, smooth, and ready for beautiful royal icing decorations. Making sure that always use the spatula scrape down at the side of the bowl into the middle and do continue the mixing again. This step is so important. Sugar loves to stick to the side of the bowl, and if you don't scrape it, you will end up with uneven mixing. Some parts will be too buttery, some too sugary, and that affects the texture of our cookies. So you can use any rubber spatula or pull everything back into the middle so every single ingredient gets evenly combined. Alright, before we add the eggs, here's how you know your butter and sugars are perfectly creamed for sugar cookies. You're looking for a mixture that is fully combined, soft, and slightly pale, but not fluffy, not whipped, and definitely not airy. If your butter looks whipped like cake batter, you've gone too far. That's going to create air pockets, which makes your cookies puff and spread instead of staying flat. When it looks like this, dense, creamy, and uniform, you're ready for the eggs. And notice here, before adding the eggs in, I always beat them lightly in a separate bowl. For this recipe, we use 2 whole fresh eggs. This does 2 really important things. When eggs are beaten first, the whites and yolks are fully blended. That means they incorporate smoothly into the butter without creating stress or overmixing. Number 2, if you crack an egg straight into cold butter, the mixture can separate because you are adding a heavy liquid into fat. Beating the eggs first helps them mix in gradually and keeps your dough silky. Pro tips here is add in all these beaten eggs slowly, a bit by bit. Do not rush it through, because slow, steady mixing equivalent to strong dough, perfect structure, and cookies that bake evenly every single time. Alright, mix for a little while. I think it's done. Stop the mixer and let's prepare the flour. In another bowl, mix together 10 grams of cornstarch, 550 grams of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Baking powder gives the dough just a tiny lid, not enough to make the cookies dome or rounded, but just enough to keep them from turning dense or hard. Slightly mix it. Now go back to our dough, and it's time for us to add our flour mixture in a couple of rounds. I would suggest about 3 rounds. Mixing in the first third on low, scrub the bowl. Oops, before I forgot, make sure that you include the 1 tablespoon vanilla extract. If you're using the premium vanilla extract, then you can reduce to half tablespoon. And we will slowly add the second third. Similar to the creamy butter and sugar, always pause your mixer. Use a rubber spatula to scrape down the bowl into the middle, as well as the dough hook there. And finally, the last portion. Once the cookie dough just combine, which means mix until the flour just disappear, you can stop the mixer and that should be done. In short, clumpy looking in the bowl but comes together instantly when pressed, like a Play-Doh. Our first step is simple but essential. Preheat your oven to 175 Celsius. We want it fully stable and hot so it's ready once our delicate cutouts are chilled. Now, let's roll the dough between the 2 parchment paper, and we will place it between 2 sheets of parchment baking paper. Take a portion of the dough and cover it with another sheet of parchment baking paper. Now, roll it out evenly to between 6 to 10 millimeters thick. That's about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. You don't want your cookies overly thin or overly thick, so make sure that you can do that evenly, roll out and flatten it as much as you could. If that is handy, the big rolling pin will be really handy for this kind of big cookie doughs. Once you're happy with the thickness of the cookie dough, now you can remove 1 sheet of parchment paper and select your cookie cutter. Here's a pro tip for razor sharp edges. Press your cookie cutter straight down with authority. Give it just a tiny little wiggle right before you lift. That slight wiggle breaks the surface tension and gives your doughs perfect clean edges for professional looking cookies. Repeat the steps until you maximize all the cutter of the cookies. Alright, this is the critical part. Remove the excess dough from the tray and set it aside on separate bowl. Do not re-roll it yet. We want to finish using all the fresh, unworked dough first. Once you have used all the fresh dough, then you combine the scraps all together. Now, lift the paper, not the dough. The biggest tip here is don't pull the cookie dough up with your fingers. It can stretch and wrap the shape. Instead, lift the baking paper slightly from underneath, letting gravity help the dough release on its own. As the paper loosens, the cookies will naturally drop back onto the flat surface, be it a counter or a tray, keeping its shape perfect. Give it a try. Transfer all the shapes onto the baking tray with the baking paper and chill at least for 10 to 15 minutes. This is crucial. It sets the butter and prevents the spreading. Once the cookies are chilled, remove from the fridge and back into the oven for 10 to 40 minutes at 175 Celsius. It might be a little bit longer depending on your cookie size and thickness. How do you know they are done? Look for the color. You want just a light berry, then golden brownish at the bottom. The center should still look pale. That's the moment of perfection. Let the cookies sit on the tray for a couple of minutes to firm up. They will delicate when hot. Then move them to a wire rack to cool completely. This is critical for decorating. They must be fully cool before you even think about royal icing. Otherwise, the heat will melt your beautiful work. And the next video will be the fun part. Once the cookies are cool, we will do a royal icing decorating. So stay tuned for the next video. Here's recap my sugar butter cookies recipe, or you can go to handcurry.com for purchasing print out recipe. Oh, and one more thing, if you want to expand your baking skills beyond cookies, I'm currently running my popular sourdough bread masterclass. Freshly baked sourdough bread paired with these cookies during the holidays, that's true happiness. Check out the link below. Don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channels and click on the notification bell so that you won't miss out any upcoming recipes. Thanks for watching.